tough part about the preseason for a guy who spends 80% of his time talking about the NFL team he grew up with for the past 50 plus years is repetition. Sure seems we've been talking a whole lot about the same thing over and over again. Is it Tyler Shough? Is it Spencer Rattler? Is it Tyler Shough? Is it Spencer Rattler? It's probably the same thing you talk about with your friends at work, except that Gary dude still thinks Jake Hayner's going to start. What's up with him? Anyway, forget him. Forget all that. Isn't it nice to have a different perspective every now and then? Of course it is. And instead of having the Dat family cheat on me and go listen to some other podcasts, we brought the other podcast to you today. That's right. One of my favorite podcasters who doesn't work for the Times-Picayune is with us, as Ross Jackson will share his thoughts and tell us if his percentages on the quarterback one race has changed since Sunday's preseason opener. We'll also talk about RB2, the injury situation, and how Kellen Moore has done so far. And who knows? Maybe I'll have him give a rating on the Dattitude podcast. Oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. Let's just start the show.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, Dattitude family? Have you checked your hamstring? I don't know. You better check it. Injury bug seems to be hitting the black and gold, and I want to make sure that it hasn't extended to the fan base. What is up with that? Anyway, we'll talk about some injuries this morning. Talking about a lot of things. You know what we do here when we come to injuries? We rub some dirt on it, and we go with Dattitude. Episode number 402, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Wednesday, August the 13th, 2025. If you're new to the show, where you been? First off, you're new to the show. If you're new to the show, I'm your host, Jim Derry, 35 years in the New Orleans sports media scene. And whether this is your first episode, number 402, or somewhere in between, I thank you for being a part of this ever-growing, ever-respectful, loving Dat family. Well, sometimes we're respectful, and sometimes we're loving, and sometimes they just hate me. But whatever. You know what I mean. You know what is special about this show and every show? We do it every week. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, live at 11 a.m. Central Time. You know what is special? You are part of the show. The Dat family is a part of the show. You write you type your comments in. We show them. We talk back to you. That is what is great about this show. Some of you don't think it's great, but whatever. We're working on you. We're going to get you to think that way soon. And if you're watching or listening after the fact on any of the major podcast platforms, you can get in touch with me on X at Jim Derry Jr. via email, jderry@theadvocate.com. And if you haven't done so already, you know what I'm going to say. Subscribe to the Dattitude YouTube page. Please give us a like, a thumbs up, whatever it is. You know why. Me and the algorithm, we have a love-hate relationship, me and the algorithm. This week, okay, we're getting along. What is on the show today? You could see it if you're watching live. It is on the right-hand portion of the screen. It says coming up right there. You see that? QB1, we need a second opinion, you know? I know people get tired of just hearing what I say, especially the Spencer Rattler fans who just think that I'm hating on Spencer Rattler. So we're going to get a second opinion. Ross Jackson, I am privileged to sit next to him every Saints home game. He sits to my left. Zach Ewing to my right. It don't get no better than that. In fact, oddly enough, Ross Jackson today on my left at the Saints games. Zach Ewing on Friday is on my right. Just a coincidence. Just saying. Anyway, I'm going to get Ross's thoughts on QB1 and a lot of other things. The bigger question is, does it even matter? If you're talking about just for the 2025 season, of course it matters in the long run. But does it matter for this season? I'm going to ask him that. Ask him a lot of things. We're going to try not to spend too much because Ross is only going to be with us for about 20 to 30 minutes. He's coming on at 11:20. It is 11:05 right now if you're listening to the podcast. And if you really, really want to, I mean, and you don't want to hear me, you just came on because you want to hear Ross Jackson, and you're listening after the fact, you can speed your finger. Ross is coming on about 11:20. 20 minutes into the show. Are we nitpicking too much? We go through look, I want to ask Ross his thoughts because he does the practice stats. I want to ask about these practice stats, okay? And that's just a part of nitpicking too much. We wrote this story on Times-Picayune this morning about just, look, I do it too, but I know it's what the fans want and it's what they talk about. But are we just going through this dicey? I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. I mean, we were spoiled. We had Drew Brees forever, so we never really had a quarterback competition. Even the last few years, even though we never had Derek Carr was here for 2 years, but before that, and there was a roller coaster ride at quarterback, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton. What was the dude that was terrible? What's that guy's name that ended up going to the Bears out? I don't know. Anyway, a revolving door at quarterback since Drew Brees has left. So we're just not used to this, And now there's an actual quarterback competition. Last year was for QB2. Spencer Rattler won that easily. What are we thinking here? Anyway, I really want to get Ross's opinion. Are we just nitpicking too much? Is this a done deal? How much has his opinion changed since before this first preseason game? Has he changed it like a lot of people have changed? I'm going to ask him about that. We're going to get it's not on the coming up list, but we're going to talk about the RB2 position. Who does he think is the favorite to back up Alvin Kamara? Maybe be on the field at the same time as Alvin Kamara. Who does he think is going to win that job? What about Coach Kellen Moore? What does he think about the job that Kellen Moore has done so far? Lots of things to talk about. Lots to cram into just a small time that Ross is going to be on the show. He's only going to be on the show for maybe somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. He's got a lot going on. He is still in California. So Ross Jackson, the Locked On podcast, Locked On Saints podcast, will be with us again in about 12 minutes. Some other things this morning before we get to just the Saints. Have y'all seen, if judging by the attendance, you haven't? No, I'm just kidding. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. But we started our NFL preview shorts doing division by division on our YouTube page and on TikTok. Now, some of them are doing great, and I love to look and see what the views are and see who cares about who. But so far, we have done this morning was number 13, I believe. Let's see, 8. Me doing my show math. 8, 10, 12, 13. This afternoon will be 14. So this morning was the Las Vegas Raiders, and I looked in to see how many people had looked at it. It came up at 9 o'clock. It went online, 9 o'clock Central Time, and by 10:20-ish, I looked and it had like 8 views. Nobody gives a rat's ass about the Las Vegas Raiders. Meanwhile, the Commanders, it got a ton of views. So it just kind of depends on. It's not just who's good and who's bad. Like, nobody wanted to listen to the Chiefs. People are so sick of the Chiefs. It's kind of funny. But anyway, you can find all of our shorts on YouTube, on our YouTube page, and on TikTok, all of our previews. And then what we do is on Friday, Gabe Henderson comes on to the show, just about every show. But on Friday, Gabe's going to come on after Zach Friday, and he's going to tell me what he thinks of my predictions of we're doing the AFC and NFC West this week. So far, Gabe, a thumbs up or a thumbs down? How we doing? Are we kind of agreeing so far? He gives me a kind of a meh. So we'll see how that goes. Last week we agreed on, I think, 5 of 8, and 1 we were kind of like on the fence on. Was it 6 of 8? Okay. So we were pretty close last week. Anyway, NFL preview shorts, that is on our YouTube. They're all 3 minutes or less. Most of them are pretty close to 3 minutes. So I'd say they're all between 2 minutes and 40 seconds and 3 minutes. 3 minutes obviously is the limit. Some other news that's really important. This is really important news. You have to hear this. Again, Ross coming on in about 10 minutes. Taylor Swift's podcast comes out today. If y'all trade me for Taylor Swift, I'm just going to say I'm going to haunt your ass. We joked earlier about bringing the other podcast. What the hell is Taylor Swift going to talk about? Is she going to have her boyfriend on? Are they still boyfriend and girlfriend, by the way? Is she going to be Taylor Kelsey at some point? I don't know. Does it matter? Anyway, I just thought that was funny when I was going through the list of what's going on today. NFL news, James Cook. Did y'all see this morning? The Buffalo Bills. Goes to show you how different the running back market is from the past and now compared to the wide receiver market. Y'all remember it was last year, right? When Jamar Chase was holding out and he got a 4-year extension on his contract. $161 million for Jamar Chase. There are several other contracts. Now, not that high, but they're the wide receiver contracts compared to the RB market. Now, look, James Cook is not a top 5 running back, okay? He's a solid running back, but just goes to show what the market is for an RB1. James Cook, 4 years after he did his little sit-in, he went to camp and sort of practiced, didn't play in the game, I don't think, in their first preseason game. Got his deal this morning, according to sources. 4 years, $48 million, as opposed to Jamar Chase. 4 years, $161 million. Now, look, Jamar Chase obviously means more to the Bengals than James Cook means to the Bills, in my opinion. But it's not a gap of that huge, a little more than 3 times? That's crazy. That's crazy to me. But that's what the contracts are. That's where we are in the NFL right now. I'm going to get to some more. I got a couple other things to say, some other news this morning, but I do want to get to some comments. Again, Ross Jackson coming on in about 8 minutes, so I want to get to the comments before he comes on. And when Ross comes on, we will show comments. If you have a question or a comment for Ross, I'm not going to show as many as I show, obviously, when it's just you and I, but we will show comments and we will ask him questions. Brian, what's going on this morning? It's great to see Ross on the show. How is he enjoying California? I'll ask him. He's going to be coming home pretty soon. Back to the heat and humidity. Yeah. Charles Magus, good morning. Dattitude family. O-line needs some help. We're definitely going to talk about that. Clap done for the season. UBN's here. Good morning. In what week will quarterback not be a topic of the day? That will be probably Mardi Gras week. I'm just guessing. Somewhere around there. Rainy Cajun, you definitely picked the wrong season to stop sniffing glue. That's some hate, man. You can sniff it if you want. I mean, just go back to it. You can always quit later. Apathy's here. Good morning. 1 week into the preseason, they already need to scour the wires to find depth at O-line and wide receiver. I swear the powers that be put a 40-year curse on the Saints for 2009. Hey, I don't know if you think the same way I do. I was like, you remember when the Vikings were driving down the field in the NFC Championship game, and you said, just let us have our one. Just let us have our one. We'll never ask for another one ever again. Got what you asked for. I'm just saying. Earl's picks. It's Shough. Let's move on. Can't move on. You can't. You just can't. That's what we're going to talk about. Again, I guarantee you there is someone who doesn't think it's Shough. Let's move on. And that's the Who Dat Daddy. Who Dat? Glad you're here this morning. David Ducas here. Good morning. Let's get some positive vibes going. We're going to do our best. I can't promise everything. Brian says his quarterback thoughts have not changed. It's Spence. Just kidding. It's Tyler Shough. Hakeem's here. Big dog. Oh, yeah. Who Dat Daddy? I got to show. I'll show 2 of yours, my friend. You think the show is great. Thank you. Cecil Evans. Happy hump day. Remember that commercial? I miss that commercial. Us Saints fans who attended games in the 70s will have an easier time navigating this season than newbies. Archie Manning was the reason they were able to win 5 games. I don't know. Archie Manning started in 1980 and they only won 1. But I do love me some Archie Manning. Got to have him on. He's never been on this show. Got to have him on the show. Dylan Smith. Good morning, Dattitude family. Greatest quarterback of all time showed up at camp. Yes, you're talking about Bobby Hebert. I mean, Drew Brees. Sorry. I read that wrong. The man, the myth, the legend. Who dat, baby? Charles Magus' best podcast ever. Wow. Thanks. Randy Cajun says we're going to need to start a Dattitude swear jar this year. We ain't. There's no FCC on Dattube. No. Mark Satanovich. Right now, he's going to cut the rat some. So he's starting to change a little bit. It was rat. Now he's going to cut the rat some slack. Oh. Because he didn't have Kamara in the starting lineup. And because Clapp got hurt. You're going to cut the rat some slack because Will Clapp got hurt? Woo. I don't even know where to go with that. I'm just kind of reclaiming. You don't get me speechless, Farrah. That one kind of got me speechless for a second. Julian Martin, shock. Let's go. QB1, hands down. UBN making sure I know that Travis Swift and Taylor Kelsey are still together. What else we got here before I get to a couple more comments? Ross coming on in about 3 or 4 minutes. Let's see. How long will Penning be out? We're going to talk about that with Ross. Penning will be out according to our guys at NOLA.com/Saints about 2 to 3 weeks. Will that linger into the regular season? I don't know the answer to that. Paul Laporte, do I think the Saints defense will be better than expected? We'll ask Ross what he thinks. I do. I do think they would be better than expected. How long is it going to take them to adjust to the new scheme? How much of the new scheme are they going to implement? That's the big question. Are they going to go straight 3-4, or are they just going to kind of slowly implement it? We'll see. Mitch Bergeron. It's Hayner's third year and Rattler's second. They should be way ahead of Shough at this point. They are not. That's not good. Oh, we knew that already. We knew it's not good. It's not a good spot. It's just not. Daryl Romero, good morning. Great show. Saints are going to be okay. Relax. We have a team. Only 32 cities can say that. Actually, it's less than 32 because LA and New York have 2. So 30, right? Gabe, no one else has 2. I don't think. Anyway, I know what you mean. Rainy Cajun wants me to open up the super chats. Because we're actually over 1,100 on YouTube. Look, I've told you all this. We average about 10 to 12,000 viewers a show. Most of them are on Facebook. I love you, Facebook viewers. I love you immensely. But you got to come over to the YouTube page. Leonardo, do I believe with giving Taysom Hill, he could become Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson? I think Taysom Hill is probably got a better chance to become me than Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray. I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't know if Taysom Hill's ever going to play another down of football. I just don't. He's on. I think he's already on the PUP list. I think that means first 6 games going to miss. You're talking about you don't become anything when you're 35 years old, by the way. Again, not being mean. I'm just being realistic. I don't know if Taysom Hill's going to play anymore. I mean, even if he does come back and try to come back, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is his last season. How much does he play a role in this team? I don't know. This team needs some help at tight end. They signed one yesterday that I never heard of. Maybe we'll talk about that later. We'll see what we talk about. And Ross Jackson come on in about a minute or two. He's not in the green room yet. As soon as he is there, we will put him on. Sean, do I think it's possible Jake Haener doesn't make the final 53-man roster, replaced with a veteran from another roster possibly? I think Jake Haener probably will make the roster and probably will end up on the practice squad. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Anyway, before we get to Ross Jackson and the rest of the show, let me tell you about our friends at Evangeline Securities. Of course, they are a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business. And just as importantly, they could tell you what that business is worth. If that's you or someone you know, someone you love, someone you just kind of like, but you really want to help them, just have them reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ron Hemeld. They will start by scheduling a complimentary evaluation from their offices, either on Poydras Street or in Lafayette. From there, you will be well informed to begin to make the decision on if you want to proceed. I checked this morning, by the way, and no one in Evangeline has a hamstring issue. They are all in game shape. Give them the green light. Nobody's going to miss their game this week. And while we talk to Ross, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. And then we'll be back later on to talk some more about them. Let's move on and talk about the New Orleans Saints. What everyone wants to talk about with the man who knows as much or more than anyone else about these New Orleans Saints. Live from California, Ross Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here with you.
How much have you enjoyed that weather out in California? I'm
Oh,
jealous.
I mean, listen, I'm very sort of like weather resilient. I can operate in basically anything but cold weather, so it's all the same to me.
It's all the same. Now, see,
It's all the
that's
same
just
to me.
not fair because it's not all the same. The guys are like me, and I'm stuck here in my home office where
Right.
my AC. I'm not going to cry to, but my AC is not working properly. That's a whole different story. All
rough.
right, we only have like 25 minutes with you this morning, so I'm going to get right to it. And the question, which is obviously the one that keeps coming up, and I joked in the open about repetitive. That's what you get in the preseason repetition, and we keep talking about the same things, but people want to talk about it. And the answer to quarterback one, when's it going to, first of all, forget about who it's going to be. First, when do you think that answer will come?
Yeah, I think the Saints either already know their answer or will know it by the end of the Jacksonville Jaguars game, but I wouldn't expect them to say squat until right before week one. There's no reason to. They're going to try to hold on to the competitive advantage, I imagine. Now, Kellen Moore has been a lot more sort of forthcoming with information than maybe some of the previous coaches, so maybe he operates a little bit differently, but just understanding the way that the NFL works and all of the pieces that are attached, the gamesmanship, look how good we are at chess kind of stuff, that I expect that they're going to hold off as long as they can before making an official announcement.
That's typical Saints, right? Though, and even though Kellen Moore is going to learn the Saints way, right? We just don't say anything.
Right. Yeah. Eventually, it's going to happen. Like he's given up some good stuff right now. He's been great and everything like that. But I expect as you get to the regular season, some things, of course, are going to be dialed back.
We're going to get to Kellen Moore in just a minute, but I want to ask you, and as I want to put the stats from this past preseason game on the screen here, I want to ask you, has your opinion on who the QB1, have your percentages changed from before this preseason game to now? Are they the same, or are they a little different?
No, interesting question. I think when it comes to who I think the Saints are going to name the starter, no, nothing's changed, because I've always kind of assumed it was going to be Tyler Shough week one. That was always kind of my take, was that in order for Spencer Rattler to win this quarterback battle, he would have to do so by a wide margin. If anything is close, then tie goes to the runner, and the runner is the guy that you drafted 40th overall, the highest draft pick that you spent on a quarterback that's going to turn 26 years old during the season. You're probably going with that guy. So that's kind of the way that I saw it before, and that's still the way that I see it now, in terms of now you're seeing kind of Tyler Shough maybe narrow the gap a little bit, the gulf that did exist between he and Spencer Rattler for a little while. What did change is that distance. So not necessarily the decision, but the criteria for the decision for me changed to where it went from Spencer Rattler kind of having this sizable lead, where it's like, okay, well, if he holds on to that, then sure. But now to not necessarily having as sizable a lead. And because of that, it still kind of keeps me in that zone where I think Tyler Shough will be the week one start.
Ross Jackson here on the Dattitude podcast on this Wednesday morning, presented by Evangeline Securities. We thank Ross for taking the time. You want to talk about a busy man? This man's all over the. When are you coming back, by the way?
I come back on Saturday, right before the game on Sunday.
Okay, not too far. Reading between the lines as talking about the QB1, I thought the play calling, you could tell me if you disagree, but I thought the play calling was certainly different. It leads into what you were just talking about, because I agree with you 100%. I thought, even though Spencer has started the game, I thought his play calling was different. It was sort of like what they did in practice yesterday. He got the scripted part of the game, the dinks and the dunks, and then coming in, and when they were trying to alter things and change things up, that's what Tyler Shough came in and did, and it's why he threw more passes, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of look back as I went through the game film and everything like that. You can kind of see some of those shot plays still dialed up for Spencer Rattler that just simply weren't available. And to an extent, that might just really be the difference between playing more of a first team defense as opposed to more of a second or third team defense, which is why maybe this second preseason game against Jacksonville becomes really important. Because if I'm the Saints, I reverse the order, right? That's typically what we see in these quarterback competitions throughout the preseason, where one guy starts, the other guy is second, then the next game, the guy that was second starts, the guy that started last was second. And so I would expect to see that, so that you can maybe see a little bit more of what Tyler Shough can do in that situation against let's call it like higher ranking on the depth chart kind of competition. I don't want to say better competition because it's not like the entire first team defense was out there. You know what I mean? It was first team defense minus pieces. And so maybe it just has a little bit more to do with that. But I think you saw like the Cedric Wilson 3rd and 1, 21-yard game was excellently schemed up and called by Kellen Moore, kind of opened him up over on that left side of the field. There were a couple of shot plays that were also called and dialed up. There was one that Spencer Rattler had his eyes on, but then it ended up being busted up because of pressure and everything. And so I don't know necessarily that I would say that the game was called differently. It feels like the play calls were pretty similar. In fact, you actually can see some of the exact same plays being called, which is typical of a preseason game. But the difference was how well that sort of first unit, we'll call it, of the Chargers responded to those moments versus how they responded to the second or third units later on.
Have you seen, and we talked about, I'm going to get to the whole taking of stats and practice thing in just a minute. But have you seen from day one of camp to today improvement with both of these guys? How have you seen the improvement between Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Tyler Shough, I think you've seen the wider sort of margin of improvement because he had further to go, right? Coming in as a rookie, not having NFL experience, things like that. And so for him, I think the biggest thing was getting more decisive and being less risk averse. And so he was having some situations where, you would go out and practice, he'd be on 7-and-7s and he would scramble. And you're kind of like, oh man, it's 7-on-7. Like, just let it rip, give your receiver a chance and these one-on-one opportunities that they're getting, all those kinds of things, like build that trust. And then sort of as camp went along and he got into more of those sort of call it sequences where, the Kellen Moore and Brandon Saylor actually calling the offense and defense, you saw him get a little bit more comfortable. And in that environment, he's become a lot less risk averse. He's become a bit more aggressive while still being, picking his moments and things like that. I know, we can talk about the pick six and everything, but we don't see that as much in practice and stuff like that. And so I think that he's done a good job there. That's where I've seen the biggest amount of growth from him. When I look at Spencer Rattler, I really kind of go back to last year and then look at his growth over the course of training camp. And I would say his willingness and ability to utilize his legs has been a big part of what you've seen from him. He's moving a lot quicker. His frame is a lot different. Like, there's a lot more kind of going on in that area of the game for him, which is great, especially in a Kellen Moore offense. But then also just the decisive manner in which he gets the football out of his hands. He gets the football out of his hands a lot more quickly than we saw last season. And I would say that's probably where we've seen the biggest improvement for him in a passing. You
talk about decisiveness with Spencer Rattler, and sometimes I wish that he makes it, not that he makes a decision, that he doesn't make a decision quick enough, but he's using his first read to me, I wish he would just kind of just would just wing it sometimes. Just take off sometimes. On that, on that drive where they got the ball to the 17-yard line or whatever, and they stalled and they didn't score. There was a play where he ended up going off to the left and running for about 5 yards. But I thought if he would have ran about a second sooner, I think he might have scored there. And look, and I know he's still young and he's still got a long way to go and he's still learning, but I just think his athleticism, if he would just let himself go, I think he has a chance, to be something, but I haven't seen him be able to do that in a game situation.
Yeah. And that's something that just kind of comes with reps and comes with time. I mean, he even spoke after the game when we spoke to him in his media availability on the strip sack that he felt that he should have taken off on that play too. So there's kind of always going to be these moments early on in his career where, he's picking up the decisiveness and picking up sort of even though I thought he was a little bit more conservative during the preseason game than we see in practice, but he's picked up a little bit more of the decisiveness, the quick progression, all that stuff in the passing game. Now he's got to develop that in the run game as well and kind of figure out when's the best time for me to say, I'm going to tuck it and run it versus, I'm going to keep my eyes downfield and looking for that next passing attempt.
Do you agree with me that no matter who starts on September 7th, I think that both of these guys are going to see a significant amount of playing time throughout this regular season?
I think that's very possible. Yeah, I think it's very possible. I think if Spencer Rattler's the week one starter, that's absolutely the truth, 100%, because eventually you're going to get to a point where you need to see what you have in Tyler Shough before you enter the offseason and where you might be in position to draft another quarterback if you wanted to early on in next year's draft. So you need the evaluation of both of these guys. I think, though, that if Tyler Shough starts the season and performs well, that's where that sort of changes because they kind of know what they have in Spencer Rattler. He's got NFL action. They had sort of this training camp to work with him, all these other things. So I think that's where maybe that gets a little bit trickier. But for the most part, I completely agree that is absolutely a possibility that you're going to see both of these guys. And look, I know Tyler Shough's injury history is not one of soft tissue, but he still has an injury history. And so even if you go with him week one, there's still no, guarantee that you don't see Spencer Rattler at some point during the season.
It's funny because I've had so many people either email me or comment. They're either on one side or the other. There's no middle ground with Saints fans. They're either in Shough camp or they're in Rattler camp. There is no, I've had so many people who are rooting for Shough to win the job say, if they start Rattler, they're going to go 2-15. And then I've had people who say, if they start Shough, they're going to go 2-15. So, I mean, does it matter in the grand scheme of things, this team for this record this season?
I don't think so. Not for the record. Like I still look at this, no matter who you choose, you're probably a 5 to 6 win team at best here in 2025. And that really doesn't have a lot to do with the quarterback position. It's got a lot to do with the fact that the team can't stay healthy. It's got a lot to do with the fact that the team's offensive line is still a concern, right? Still, the offensive line's still a concern. The depth at offensive line is a major concern and has not been impressive here throughout training camp. And you're already dealing with health injuries on the offensive line or health issues in the offensive line. And that's going to be the case for every NFL team across the league. And you don't have the depth to help you manage that attrition. The Saints wide receiver room is small and it's light. From a talent perspective, it's light. And so I think there's a lot of different pieces and reasons why this team is not probably going to be a playoff team in 2025. Like, I wouldn't put my money on that, but that's okay. It's part of the process right now. You got a new head coach. You're trying to figure out the new quarterback. You flipped your entire coaching staff. You have a new identity. It's a new era of New Orleans Saints football. And that's not going to be built in one offseason. That's going to take a few off seasons. This is going to be, if there's going to be a rebuild that reaches success, it's going to look a lot more like what the Detroit Lions had to go through than it's going to look like the Washington Commanders had to go through, for instance.
I read a social media post yesterday from Caesars that said some better placed a $200 bet on the Saints to win the Super Bowl at plus 30,000, which would net them a profit of $60,000 if it actually happened. Now, I wish that person would have taken $200 and given it to charity. I just think that would have.
It's all the same, really. That's all that they just did. They gave it to the charity of Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. They gave it to Vegas. One fun question real quick before we move on to something else. Again, we only got about another 8 or 10 minutes with you here this morning. Ross Jackson of the Locked On podcast, Locked On Saints podcast, and you can find him. Tell us where we can find. By the way, before we get on, tell us where everyone can find you.
Yeah, you can find all the written work over at louisianasports.net. You mentioned the podcast, Locked On Saints. We also have the great Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, myself and sports director Doug Mouton, who, of course, always speaks very highly of you, Jim. He and I over at WWL Plus have a show together over there as well. So lots of different places where you can find all the work. But the easiest thing to do is to find it all on social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA, and OLA.
Doug Mouton is kicking my butt in fantasy baseball right now, so I don't even want to talk about it.
Oh, really? You don't want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll see him on Sunday, I'm sure. Okay, real fun. This is a fun question, and this is completely tongue-in-cheek, but how did we get here to where we are taking stats and practice, Ross Jackson? And then we're like, and we're doing it too here at the Time Speaking. We are, not only are we keeping stats from each practice, we're like showing them what their aggregate totals are at the end of each practice.
Yeah, I always do a cute. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's valuable. It's what happens when you have a quarterback battle. Everyone wants as much information as possible so that they can kind of get an idea of what's going on. And so being able to provide those stats, as long as you're providing the context of how they got there, which both the Times Pick do, I know I do, like there's a lot of different ways to kind of do that by going through either play-by-play or describing, hey, here's what the work was today, right? Because a 5-touchdown day looks a lot different when you're in red zone drills versus when you're, driving from the 35, right? Like, so you got to provide that context. But I do think it's just another kind of way to give a peek behind the curtain on what is, I always want to call it New Orleans' biggest story, but then I remember that there was a jailbreak during all of this too. So I guess that's really was the biggest story in New Orleans. But, the biggest New Orleans Saints story being the one around, of course, these two quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah. I'm just poking fun. But I did, it was something that was never done before. And then all of a sudden, and it's not just the Saints. They do it across the league. It's actually done, so I read about other teams and trying to find out what's going on as we do our NFL previews. And other teams are doing it too. So it's not just here
Yeah.
in New Orleans.
I just feel it's important to give the context, right? Like I said, like a 5-touchdown day can look real different depending upon what the work was on those days and things like that. So as long as you're given that, I think that it provides good information. But it is a change. It's a recent shift, I think, in the media landscape.
Most definitely, and we're just having a little fun with you, for sure. All right, moving on a little bit for the quarterback. Obviously, there are other stories and a lot of questions about injuries. We're going to get to injuries in just a second, but I want to ask you. Obviously, we don't give enough attention to me. This is almost the biggest story as who's going to be QB1, is who's going to be RB2. Who is going to be that? Because Alvin Kamara, he's 30 years old. You don't want him to touch the ball 300 times. You just don't, right? Because he's not going to last for 17 games. So it is key this year and every year, but especially this year. Who is in the lead for the RB2 spot? Who do you think is the most capable? We saw Kendra Miller kind of come in and start the Chargers game. Who do you think is in the lead for that RB2 spot?
Yeah, I think it is Kendre Miller. And I think one of the big reasons why is because of his ability to be able to complement what it is that Alvin Kamara does. The Saints have kind of like their wide receiver room. They have a lot of running backs that can kind of do similar things, right? Alvin Kamara, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Velus Jones Jr., Marcus Yarns. These are all guys that can catch out of the backfield and run outside the tackles. I'll give Clyde Edwards-Helaire a little bit of the separating factor that he's actually really effective between the tackles too. So I think that helps him. But I think it's guys like that, like Kendre Miller, Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that are the ones that end up kind of giving you a better complement to what it is that Alvin Kamara does. And then if you want another guy that can do what Alvin Kamara does, that's where Velus Jones Jr. really, really comes in handy, while also giving you a guy that might be able to spell Rashid Shaheed in the return game every now and then as well, to reduce some of the hits on him over the course of his season. So I think that's kind of the way that I look at it. I would put kind of those bigger bodied between the tackles guys up there as kind of the RB2. And then however they want to fill out the rest of the running back room, they have some options. But I think Kendre Miller is slightly in the lead right now.
Call me a sap if you want, but I always root for the underdog and the comeback guy. And that's why I think I'm kind of rooting for Cam Akers. I would love to see him just have another chance to be what he was before all these brutal injuries that he's gone through. And I mean, he's got a shot, doesn't he?
He's got a shot. Yeah, I think one of the things that really stands out about him, and I know it's boring, but it's pass protection. And look, you have to be able to do that, right? You have to be able to do that in the backfield if you want to be no block, no rock, as they say. And so you got to be able to do that if you want to make a roster and everything. And so that certainly helps. He had some ball control issues early on in training camp, but he looks to have tightened that up a little bit, had a couple of punch outs, fumbles, things like that. But I think he's kind of gotten that under control now. We'll see how the next couple of weeks go. But I think if he can continue on his trajectory, yeah, absolutely. He's a guy that absolutely has a shot right alongside a guy like Kendre.
Yeah. Well, look, whoever it's going to be, they need to get the ball rolling, so to speak. Kendra Miller came into the preseason game, and I thought he looked good the first couple of plays, and then kind of a bunch of nothing after that. So I'm worried about what's going on there.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things with the run game is the Saints during that game allowed just over half a yard before contact in the run game. The offensive line got no push at all. And that was a big issue for them last year too, and the year before, but multiple years under, Doug Marrone, Pete Carmichael, all that. And it just wasn't a part of what they did well. And it didn't seem to improve during this preseason game, but we also didn't see the full complement of the offensive line. So we'll see how that changes. But I think that's going to be a big factor, is that beyond just how the running back runs, because Kendre Miller had 20 yards after contact, but only 14 rushing yards on the day. That's how often he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. And so if the offensive line isn't able to get that push in the run game, then who RB2 is, it's hardly going to matter, because you're not going to be able to get your run game going. So it's kind of a two-facet thing in order for that running back or for that run game to really get going. But Kendre Miller's ability after contact and as a physical player, same for Cam Akers. I think that's really, like, both of those qualities are really valuable in both of those guys.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's going to be interesting to see how it shapes up as we go on down the line. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this. You talked about the offensive line, and all preseason long, all during mini camps, and then into training camp, we're talking about how maybe this is the most deep offensive line that we've seen since Drew Brees and Sean Payton were together in 2020. And now Will Clapp's out for the season. He was going to be the backup center and maybe potentially fill in at guard if you needed some help at guard. Trevor Penning, who we were so interested to see what he was going to do at left guard. Now he's banged up. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. We hope he's back for the regular season. But what is going on, Ross Jackson? What the hell did they drink in California?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's something along what they drink here in California, or just getting into preseason football, right? Actually having to get hit, actually having to hit, getting stepped on, all these other things. Like it's just one of those unfortunate situations for New Orleans. And look, they had trouble staying healthy here last year too, right? They had an injury every single practice for a long time through the first, I think, 14 or 15 practices or so last year. And so it's an unfortunate situation, but it's just kind of the reality of the New Orleans Saints. I agreed early on that they might have their deepest offensive line in a long time, but turns out we were wrong. And a big part of the reason why we were wrong is because Nick Saldiveri's on injured reserve. His season's over. Will Clapp Jr., as you mentioned, his season's over before it gets an opportunity to begin. Trevor Penning's banged up. And now all of a sudden you've got one of those quality veteran backup offensive linemen that we were so, high about when it came to, the Saints building of that unit, and in Dylan Radins, who struggled big time against Los Angeles Chargers. Now, he was playing out of position. He was playing his tackle role as opposed to playing on the interior. But I mean, that was a very loud struggle. I don't know that moving, 3 foot to your left makes you any better in that situation. So we'll have to see kind of how things happen for them. But they're not as deep as they were looking, at least when it comes to veteran depth. And so now you're hoping that like 97% of the snaps that were played on offense at center came from Torricelli Simpkins, the undrafted free agent rookie.
He looked great.
And he looked really good. Yeah, he looked really good. And so you're hoping that that's not a fluke, right? So now you're hoping that it's the young depth that's going to be able to buoy the sort of the depth of this offensive line, as opposed to the more surefire answer, which were some of those veterans.
Torricelli Simpkins, that might be on the all-name Saints team at some point. If he ends up being a starter, somewhere along the line, he could be on the all-name Saints team. David +1 hash wants to know, is it a concern that the Saints have 4 first-round picks and a second on the O-line, and we're still saying O-line is a concern?
Is it a concern? That's a good question. I don't know that I would call it a concern. I think you see this. I mean, like there are teams that had multiple first-round pick and first-round quarterbacks that they didn't pan out either. You know what I mean? And so I think it's just the nature of the draft. I think if you're going to invest anywhere, you have to invest in the offensive line. Absolutely. So they were sound, and so they're sound investments. They make sense. But what's concerning is that the offensive line is concerning, not necessarily their draft position translating to it. Because I think individually, like Taliesin Fuanga had a really solid rookie season, with the exception of that 3-game stretch right in the middle of the year that was kind of bookended around that Denver Broncos game where he gave up 3 sacks, or was credited with giving up 3 sacks. Kelvin Banks Jr. looks really good. Eric McCoy is one of the better centers in the team. It's just your question marks are kind of those guard spots and health. And so I think that a big reason why we talk about the offensive line and the concerns around the offensive line really comes down to when you don't have those picks on the field more than when they are on the field, outside of not necessarily getting that push in the run game. So I'm curious about how maybe the coaching ends up helping that. Then maybe we would have to address like, okay, you had a lot of investments, but maybe some time for some turnover.
Saints signed another backup tight end. We need help with Juwan Johnson for sure. Just tell me, what is this team's philosophy? Do you think they're going to go out and try to sign a veteran tight end that can really help Juwan Johnson? I mean, because right now we know that Taysom Hill is on the PUP list. We know that Foster Moreau is on the PUP. I mean, just the problems at tight end, and a lot of people are asking about it. And Calvin 14 here says Saints don't have a consistent possession receiving threat at wideout or tight end. A lot of people talking about tight end. It is a main area of concern. Is there anything this team can do?
Yeah, I don't know that really the market has any names available that's going to, save you here in August. You know what I mean? It feels like the room that they have is a room that they're going to have, and free agency is going to come from when guys like Foster Moreau as well as Taysom Hill get back out on the field. I'm probably higher on Juwan Johnson than most people are, because I think that a lot of the reason why Juwan has had sort of lighter seasons over the course of the past 2 years, even though he was the Saints' leading receiver last season, comes down to the fact that he was asked to be an offensive lineman early on in each of those years. And then it was like they got partway through the season and went, oh, right, Juwan can run routes and catch. Let's throw him the football. And so then you kind of saw him tick up towards the end of the year. I think that Kellen Moore is going to make him a greater focal point in this offense, and he has the ability to be the possession option. In fact, he's probably the best opportunity for a big-bodied possession receiver because they don't have that in the wide receiver room. And I think that the addition of Jack Stoll is a little bit underrated as well. Biggest thing for him is going to be catching the football. He's had a couple of drops and things like that, but outstanding blocker. He's going to be able to help your run game. And, when he does get the ball in his hands, he's actually pretty effective after the catch. So I like them there right now when it comes to those two guys, when it comes to being serviceable at the tight end position. Do I think that they have a core threat at the position? No, but most NFL teams don't. And so I think that it's probably something to where if they want to address or improve that position, they're going to have to wait until the offseason to do that. I think that they should, but I think that they'll have to wait until the offseason to do that. Not a lot of things are going to save them at this point.
Would have been an interesting situation last year if the Raiders had not taken Brock Bowers and he would have fell to the Saints, and the Saints had to decide, but do you go get Taliesin or do you draft the Brock Bowers? And we talked about it in the live show here. That would have been an interesting situation. It would have been the one area where I said, okay, you can't draft the O-lineman. You got to go get Brock Bowers, who ended up turning out to be probably the best tight end in football last year. But neither here nor
I don't
there.
know. It's interesting.
What do you think about Alontae Taylor? He obviously groin issue. He missed the first preseason game. We're not sure when he's coming back. We didn't even know it was a groin issue until Kellen actually said something. But do you think he's going to be okay and back for the regular season opener?
Yeah, it sounded like it wasn't the same situation as, obviously not season ending, but like if I'm putting these in buckets, I'm still putting him and Bub Means in a different bucket, right?
Yeah,
Bub Means we haven't heard in terms of like what the long-term impact is, but he's seeking a second opinion. That's usually means that the first opinion was surgery and you're looking for a way to not get surgery. That's usually what that means. I'm speculating, but that's typically what we see. And so I think I would put Alontae Taylor in a lesser bucket than that, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And so I feel like him and Trevor Penning might be kind of on similar timelines. They were kind of grouped together when Kellen was giving his updates. So it feels like they're kind of on similar timelines, but with him not having to deal with turf toe, maybe back a little bit sooner. So I think if you're the Saints, you're crossing your fingers that you just kind of let him rest up through the rest of the preseason, kind of like what they did with Marshawn Lattimore last year during training camp, to where he practiced like 3 times and they were like, all right, you sit over there. You're good. See you week 1. I think that you might see something. Right. I think you might see something similar with Alontae because they know what his role is. He knows what his role is. They know what he's going to be able to contribute to this defense and the excitement that he has to contributing to it. There's no reason to kind of put him at any further risk, especially with the soft tissue situation.
Going to miss Paulson and Debo, I think, but that's a whole different story. Last question before we let you go this morning. I just want to know, how do you think, how is Kellen Moore doing as a rookie head coach so far? Obviously, we're only 3 weeks into camp, one preseason game under the books, but I mean, maybe I don't know. I'm actually more impressed than I thought it would be at this point. He has handled himself very well. We showed some of his press conference the other day, and I think he's talking a little fast, which means he's nervous. His pulse is probably, over 100 when he's getting up there to the podium to talk. He's probably more nervous at the podium than he is actually calling the game. That'll fade in time. He'll start talking slower, but I think what he's done so far, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I'm really impressed with him so far. And I was one of the people that when they hired Kellen Moore, or when Kellen Moore was a candidate, I was like, can he be that leader of men type? Can he be that kind of rah-rah guy and everything? And every player that I've talked to kind of says, yeah, he is. He just does it in a different way. It looks different. Like everybody respects him for the fact that he's closer to being a player like they are than he is to being, an aged out head coach or something like that, right? He's 36 years old. He's the youngest coach in the NFL. And so I think that has been a part of what has allowed sort of the team to be able to rally around him. I think he gives the team a lot of opportunity to kind of control what it is that they want to do, how they're doing it, not from a practice standpoint, but, building relationships with one another, spending time watching film, how they address their bodies in terms of after practice, giving them time to go out there and do recovery, things like that. But I think that the other piece is that he's just a guy that loves football, and every one of those players loves football too. And everybody just kind of rallies around that. So yeah, I've been pretty impressed with what he's going to do. I think the thing that I'm most interested to see is what it looks like when they, lose 3 games in a row or something like that, right? Like how do you manage that? Yeah, how do you manage that? And so I think that it's the response to adversity that coaches always talk about. I want to see in the coach as opposed to the player. That's where I'm really intrigued to see how things go. But impressed overall so far.
Yeah, that may actually happen in September. I mean, look, Ross, I think you and I both agree, and we're not going to be too mean here, but just the fact that this organization 100% needed to change and to go in a different direction, just that and the breath of fresh air. Maybe no other team in the NFL needed that more than this one.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I get on a lot of, radio calls with different, national different things and stuff like that. People that aren't, in New Orleans and kind of know what the history of this team is, recent history of the team is. And they ask me, how are Saints fans feeling about all this change? And the thing that I always say is, well, it's not Dennis Allen, it's not Derek Carr.
Exactly.
Everyone's pretty happy. You know what I mean? Like, it changed everything. And I think that Kellen coming in and kind of providing this team a new approach, a new era, the offensive head coach, right? Like the big trend brought them as well to opportunities to go and do team building and blah, 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 like all this other stuff. It's something that's kind of pushing this team in the right direction and is kind of creating that culture change. And again, that's going to take multiple off seasons to really translate to the football field, I imagine. But the expedition in which, or the expedited nature in which he's been able to create sort of a new vibe, if you will, in the room is really, really impressive.
One really quick comment, and then I'm going to let you go. If I can find the live TV here. Well, I can't find it now, but someone said that a 20 or 30 minute segment is you are so concise in your answers and put everything together perfectly that a 20 or 30 minute segment with you is like a 40 or 50 minute segment with someone else.
Oh, so that's really nice.
we really appreciate that. Ross Jackson, once again, tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Most of them know that already, but tell them anyway.
That's all right. Yeah, no, absolutely. If you want more, and if you haven't already, you can come and check out the Locked On Saints podcast, which is free and available on all podcast platforms as well as on YouTube. That features our Saints Squad show as well. Myself, Dylan Sanders from Saints Wire, John Hendricks over at New Orleans Football, and former New Orleans Saints wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Lance Moore. You can also find all the written work over at LouisianaSports.net, the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, and WWL Plus. You can find all of that all in one place on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson Nola, Nola.
Well, you and I have been sitting next to each other at Saints games for a couple of years now. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday. We'll have plenty more to say, I'm sure. Enjoy it. Thank you so much for your time, Ross Jackson, and be safe coming home back to New Orleans.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. You be safe as well. Take care, and I'll see you here soon.
Sounds good. Ross Jackson, everybody. Check out his podcast, Locked On Saints Podcast. You can find it on YouTube is where I usually watch it, but you can also get it wherever you get your podcast. Great guest. I'm actually upset with myself that I had him on last year. I went and looked the last time I had him on. I think it was either the same week or the week before last year. So we can't go a year without having Ross Jackson on this podcast. Fantastic guest. And love having him on. And I love that he's gracious enough to come on. In this world that we live in this podcast world and radio world and TV world and all these, forms of media are meshing together. It's kind of weird because I got to be honest. I mean, I don't know, maybe my bosses might call me and tell me, don't ever say that again, Derry. But I mean, I don't even look at most of us as competitors. I mean, there are some, I guess. I think some podcasters, some writers, some radio people, some TV people, they feel differently. Everyone feels differently. But I just don't think it that way. I would love anyone that wants to come on from anywhere. If you're in this media business that we roll, and if you're one of the 28 or 29 people that Jeff Duncan polls every year to get their prediction on what the Saints are going to do this year, you're welcome on the show. That's an open invitation. Anyone? Bueller? You know what I mean? All right. A couple things I want to talk about this morning before we get to Gabe. As you see there, we've been talking about the QB1 situation. Please subscribe to the Dattitude YouTube channel if you haven't. We're going to have guests every Wednesday. We're going to have kind of a revolving. This is what our football season is going to look like. Monday is going to be kind of a game review. It's going to be Mono Monday. It's going to be me. It's going to be you. It's going to be Gabe. We're going to be talking to you. Get your thoughts, and I'm going to respond to your thoughts. Wednesday is going to be kind of a revolving door of guests. That's where we're going to have whoever our guest may be. I may even try to get guests from whoever the Saints are going to play that week. I tried to start doing that last year. It kind of fell. I let it go. I want to get back to that this year. I don't necessarily want to do it every Wednesday, but especially when they play like the Falcons or they play a division opponent or a familiar foe or someone like that or someone we know, I may start trying to get someone from the Saints opponent to come in on a Wednesday. And then on Fridays, it's going to be Zach Ewing. It's going to be UBN. It's going to be Gabe. And we're going to have our Saints preview of the week. We're going to do our game previews, the big games, in college football. We'll talk about LSU probably mostly. Talk about LSU on Fridays, talk about Tulane on Fridays, and then we're going to have our predictions and our picks, and we're going to kind of combine last year's Thursday shows with Fridays. It's going to be Zach, it's going to be UBN, it's going to be Gabe. You know what? Who else is going to be a part of it? Evangeline Securities, of course. We told you earlier we're letting you know more about how our friends can help you figure out what your family-run or privately held business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? Man. Y'all ask this every show. Thank God you asked me this, because after their complimentary valuation of your company, if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick Braden, Ron Melton, the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process from among established private equity funds from around the world. Now maximize the return for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform. There are very few companies like them in this area. Go ahead, try to find someone else that's like them. You can't do it. None, especially with their dedication and success. They are fully licensed. They're ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important. And it ain't the race between Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler or Cam Akers and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Kendra Mill. No. You know what's important? The rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Comments. And the eye test definitely looks like Shough, says David Bordelon. He has a higher ceiling. If this trajectory continues, and I am correct, Shough will start week 1, and it means I am correct, meaning me. Shough will start week 1. Good morning, Dattitudes. Look. I don't know how many. Ross said, you know what? Ross said exactly what I've been saying. Common sense before Sunday, common sense after Sunday, common sense after this Sunday tells you that Tyler Shough is going to be the starter. I haven't heard nearly as many comments from the Rat Train. Just saying. It kind of disappeared a little bit. Apathy says LSU is going to lose 4 games this year, and that will be a bigger story than what happens with the Saints by far. You should bet that if you think that's going to happen, because the under 8.5 is, I think, juiced. You can make decent money. Gabe shaking his head. Yes, I think you can make decent money. If you believe that, I don't. I think LSU is going to be pretty good this year. I think they're going to be a 10-win kind of team. We'll see if that's true or not. All right. Moving on. We're going to get together. I have absolutely no clue what Gabe Henderson is going to talk about. I have no clue. By the way, we're going to finish this show with Saints talk. So keep your Saints comments coming. Probably talk about it a little bit with Gabe at some point, but I have no idea what you're going to say this morning.
I've got a fun hypothetical for you this morning.
Okay. As I drink the rest of my Cuban coffee here this morning. By the way, it's awesome. Go ahead.
So let me preface this with, you have to pick one. Realistically, you're not doing any of them. You have to pick one.
All right.
So a chance to win $1 million is on the line. You have one of 3 options that you have to perform. Would you have to try and stop Derrick Henry from getting 10 yards in an Oklahoma drill?
Okay.
Get a hit off Paul Skeens in a major league game? Or
this one's easy already. Go ahead.
Beat Steph Curry in a game to 21, being given a 13-0 lead.
But so I have to stop Derrick Henry, or I just have to try?
You have to stop Derrick Henry from getting 10 yards on 4 attempts in an
So
Oklahoma
trying
drill.
in any of these 3 things is not good enough.
No. Trying is not good enough. You have to actually complete it.
Okay, well, this is an easy answer.
Yes.
First of all, there's about a 0.2% chance that I could do any of those things. Okay. However, there's a 0.0% chance that I could do Two of them, there's a 0.0% chance. And the other one, there's about a 0.2% chance that I could do. Okay, so first off, if you think I'm trying to stop Derrick Henry from doing anything, you're out of your mind. I have seen that dude close up, sat next to him on a bench with his shirt off, and this dude is not human. He is a freak of nature. He's Superman, and anyone who thinks I would think about trying to stop him with my fat ass and my old age, you're out of your mind. So that ain't happening. That's out of the. That's literally zero. There's not 0.000001. No, 0.0. That would happen. Okay. Yeah. There's another one that's 0.0. I have 0.0 chance to beat Steph Curry in anything related to basketball or probably golf for that matter. So there is no chance that I'm doing that. Paul Skeens, I could close my eyes, swing a bat, and there's about a 0.2% chance that I accidentally hit it. So
here's the thing, though. In the Paul Skeens scenario, you've got defenders behind him. So
yeah, but
just make contact, but you've got to poke it through.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to make contact first. So there's all right, let's say 0.09% chance that I get a hit off Paul Skeens. I mean, how many chances do I get, by the way, with Paul Skeens? Do I just get one?
I believe it was 10.
10. All right.
I believe
all right, 10. UBN wants to know, could I bunt? Like, my fat ass would make it to first before somebody went, even if I made contact. I mean, that ain't, I'd have a better chance to close my eyes and swing.
If you would like to bunt on a major league infield,
Earl's Picks wants to bunt.
It out. Good luck.
Calvin says he thinks I could take Henry down.
So here's the reason I saw this hypothetical.
0.0 is back, baby. We haven't done it in a while.
The individual who made this video said the answer was easily, by far, overwhelmingly, stop Derrick Henry.
Okay, well, he needs to stop smoking crack.
And he said he made it seem like
that's
it was
the last
so easy.
One.
He said all you have to do is trip him up a couple times.
Yeah. Okay. You see, the other two, unless Skeens beans me, the other two, at least I can't get physically hurt doing those two things. I just look stupid. I mean, it might hurt my pride, but you can get like really, really hurt if Derrick Henry wanted to hurt you.
100%.
I ain't doing
that. Anyone who's actually participated in an Oklahoma drill knows that you will get hurt.
I don't care if it's Nevada, Alaska, or Okinawa drill. I ain't doing any of that with Derrick Henry. I'm not doing the Atlantic Ocean drill, Puerto Rico drill. None of them. I'm not doing any of those drills. I don't want to be anywhere. If Derrick Henry is a football, just to quote Paul McCartney, let it be.
Yeah, if anyone's ever stepped on a football field, you know how hard the Oklahoma drill can be in certain scenarios with someone who's bigger than you and stronger than you. But take that and think Derrick Henry.
No.
And there's just no chance. He would get 10 yards on the first carry and it wouldn't even be close. It'd be effortless from him.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
David +1#. The Saints end up with a top 2 pick in the draft. Do we see them taking Klubnik or Nussmeier? And I'm telling you right now, what are the odds on Klubnik to win the Heisman? That is are they over 1,500?
Depending on where you look, anywhere from +900 to +1,000. Nussmeier,
that is worth a bet.
Are the 3 favorites. It is worth a bet. 100%.
I like Klubnik to win the Heisman.
Yeah. My 2 favorite Heisman bets this year are Klubnik.
I think he's going to shoot up the board. He may end up being the number 1 pick of the draft.
I think he could be. A lot of people are talking about Drew Aller. I think it could be Cade Klubnik. Go look.
Yeah, I don't know why they keep talking
anyone who's not convinced about Cade Klubnik, go look at his stats from his first year as a starter to last year. He took a huge jump. I mean, it was serious. And he returns his top 3 leading receivers, I believe.
Black Preacher Man is here. Salute. Thank you for coming in. Who is calling? My wife is calling me. Doesn't she know I'm on a live show? Hope it's not important.
No, Calvin, all right. That's crazy. That's
Calvin,
just,
Calvin says, by the way, Calvin says, for those of you listening after the fact, going back to our hypothetical, Calvin says, shoestring tackle Henry, or hear me out, when that stiff arm of his touches your helmet, fall and hope for the best. You just can't let him throw you 6 feet out of the way like he did. So if he can throw Josh Norman 6 feet, what is he going to do to me?
Yeah, no, I mean, Earl's Picks is right. I'm not playing patty cake with Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude, what is he, like 6'2", 6'2", 215.
Yeah, and 214.9 pounds of that 215 is muscle.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not even close. So I think for what it's worth, I think the easy answer here is Steph Curry. You're not beating Steph Curry
Really?
one-on-one. You're not beating Steph Curry one-on-one, but Jim, you're also not touching a Paul Skeens pitch. With the run that his pitches have at the speed, Jim, have you ever seen a 103-mile-an-hour pitch?
No, but it doesn't matter.
I've seen
I'm just
80,
saying,
and I'm not touching it.
You can accidentally run into something.
6'3", 240, even worse.
Ding!
No chance.
Anyway,
I think it's Steph Curry.
After he wants you to explain the hype for South Carolina quarterback Lenora Sellers, everybody's hyping this dude up, I think for good reason.
I think anyone who is hyping him up didn't watch the Alabama game last year.
Then maybe they watched the LSU game.
That's fine. They can watch that all they want.
But he got hurt in the LSU game, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you watch the Alabama game, dude made some of the worst throws I've ever seen in the Alabama game, and that's including. I'm lumping that in with Nussmeier against A&M. It was one of those performances. He's good. He's a good dual threat quarterback. I don't think he's as good as everyone makes it out to be. I don't think South Carolina will be as good as everyone thinks this year.
Earl's pick says it's if it's make it take, all he's got to do is keep hitting shots.
That's a lot easier said than done. But I think Steph Curry. You're not doing any of them, but Steph Curry is the easiest answer, I think.
All right. Well, before we let you go, by the way, last chance for everybody to get their Saints thoughts in, because I'm going to shift over to the Saints after Gabe's gone. We're going to talk over about 10 more minutes. We may end the show early today. It has been a long week. NFL previews every day. I've been kicking my butt trying to do 2 of those a day, plus doing the show. It's been a whole lot of fun, but I'm ready for it to be over. Your thoughts on what Ross had to say today? I thought he was, man, you want to talk about a great guest who gives, I wasn't just blowing smoke. That dude gives some concise answers. Yeah. He's like, boom, and you know when he's done.
It's like he doesn't even have to stop and think. He just knows all of it. He's really, really impressive, knows his stuff. Yeah, and I mean, I think he's saying what everyone thinks. I thought his perspective on the running back situation was interesting.
Yeah.
And, I never really thought about Cam Akers in pass pro, but I guess that's a really good point, especially with a young quarterback. My stance. I don't think Cam Akers can get back to anywhere near his best. I've seen it. I just
hardly anyone does when they have those kind of injuries.
Yeah, exactly. And it's incredibly difficult to overcome those injuries. And he just doesn't have the same help that he had in Minnesota. Or LA for that matter. But if he's the best in pass protection, yeah.
And you don't have to be a stud when you're RB2. I mean, it helps when you're good. And you look at the teams. You look at most of the teams that were good last year. The Eagles didn't need anyone but Saquon Barkley, so that's a whole different story. UBN says, to be fair, Gabe, I don't stop when I think when I'm on here either. Yeah, you don't. That's all good, but none of us do.
What do you mean by that question? I'm curious.
I don't have the comment.
I want to answer the question. I want to know
who is the Saints' dark horse when the season starts?
Yeah, do you mean like an individual?
I mean, who's going to be good that we're not thinking of right now? That leads into like this. Okay, so I did make a slide here because I wanted to talk about this for a minute. I went and checked to see if the odds were any different this morning. We told you on Monday that the odds were basically no different. They hadn't changed at all. They changed just a little bit. NFC South division odds have changed, like just a tweak. There's no different. Tampa Bay still -110. The Saints are still +400. But what I found was interesting is Atlanta's kind of pulled away from Carolina a little bit now. Carolina's +400 to win the division. They were like +370 or 380. Atlanta has moved to like +220. I think they've moved closer to Tampa Bay. So people are starting to bet on Atlanta a little bit. But the Saints over/under win total, if you can't see my screen, I'll read them to you. Over 6.5. You're getting, if you think the Saints going to win 7 or more games, you're getting more than 2-1. You should go bet it. I don't think they're going to do that, but whatever. Under 6.5, you have to bet $280 or $28 to win 10, $280 to win 100. So then over 5.5, if you think the Saints are going to win 6 games or more, you want to play it more conservative, you're getting plus money on that. That's +135 right now. That means if you bet $10 on the Saints to win more than 5.5 games, and they do, you would win $13.50. But the one I found interesting, Gabe, is the under 4.5 has moved closer to even money. It keeps trending towards 4.5 because it was plus 140 Monday this morning, and it was plus 140 all last week. It's now Saints to go under 4.5 wins. They have 4 wins or fewer. It is plus 125. It is inching closer to even money that odds makers think that the Saints will win 4 or fewer games.
I'm not too surprised by that. But I will say if I were to bet anything on this board, I would probably bet over 5.5 at plus 135.
Okay.
I think that's the best value. I think it's the best value on the board.
All right.
I mean, Tyler Shough could be better than expected, and they could win a few games. In a 17-game schedule, I don't think 6 wins is completely out of the question. I think that's their ceiling, but I don't think it's completely out of the question.
I think 6 also is their ceiling.
Yeah, I wouldn't be caught betting under 6.5 at minus 280, and then under 5.5 at minus 165. With some of the teams that they play, I wouldn't lay the 165 on there either.
I don't disagree with that either.
Yeah,
I'm not betting any of these anyway. But if I had to bet one, and again, I don't want to be spoiler alert because we still got a couple of weeks to give my official Saints prediction. But I think the best value, it was obviously better value when it was plus 140. And I'm not trying to be Derry downer. I do think the Saints will be. I think we will all feel Saints fans will be more encouraged than discouraged when the season is over about where they're going in the long run. But because of the uncertainty at quarterback position now, the offensive line is a problem. Injuries are already starting to bite them, and we haven't even. I mean, we're at August 13th for Christ's sake, and we're already talking about probable injuries. I would say the best value is under 4.5 at plus 125, but I ain't betting that either. There's no value.
Not with the teams on the schedule. And I will say I've seen a lot of people recently talking about, could the Saints go 0-17, and some people tipping them 1-16, 2-15. I don't think it'll be that bad. I think it'll be somewhere in that 3-4-5 range. I really do.
There's enough bad teams on the schedule to where
100%.
And this team is too. Yeah. I'm not saying they're super talented, but they're too talented to go 0-17 in my opinion. That just look, and I also don't think. I think they have enough character where teams that you've seen have been super bad have also been because not only were they not talented, but they had shitty character on their team, for a lack of a better way to put it. And they just didn't give a damn. So, like, I think there's more chance like the Browns would go 0-17 than the Saints go 0-17. But not only because they're in a really tough division as well. So, anyway, that's just my opinion.
If you go and look over the last few years, the team with the worst record is more often than not 4-13.
Yeah,
they usually get a few wins. I mean, they all do. But I will. So I'll end by answering Apathy's question about a dark horse person. One person that I haven't heard talked enough, and maybe this is just because I'm out of the Saints loop outside of this show. Justin Reed.
Yeah,
he's someone that Saints fans should absolutely be excited to watch.
Yeah,
he's technically gifted, and he's a really smart player. So I mean, he's not a Tyrann Mathieu at LSU type defensive back. He's not super flashy, but he does the little things right. He's really smart, and I just think you need guys like that and leaders like that on your football team. So he's a lot of fun to watch.
He's 28 years old, and I think he could be a part of this rebuilding process where obviously the Demario Davises of the world, the Cam Jordans of the world, Tyrann Mathieu's gone now, but they're Alvin Kamara, really. I mean, those guys, Taysom Hill, those guys are not going to be a part of the rebuilding process because they're not going to be here long enough. They're just not. So anyway, but I agree with you. I think Justin Reed, that is a perfect example of a guy. David +1 # week 1 survivor pool, or am I taking the Saints Cardinals over the Saints or Broncos over the Titans? I can tell you that I am in a survivor pool that has I'll have 5 entries, and I like to switch them all up. So I'll probably take both of those. But also a caveat in my pool is the first 3 weeks you can buy back in if you miss. So I will probably also take some chances, which I did chop the pot with some other people last year. I won my survivor pool last year.
So I think the answer is easily the Broncos over the Titans. I'm not as high on the Broncos as a lot of people this year. I really, really like that week 1 matchup for them against a rookie quarterback. And I just don't think you're going to get many opportunities to bet the Broncos in a survivor pool.
Yeah, rookie quarterbacks who play rookie quarterbacks who play in week 1 don't usually fare very well. I'd have to go back and look. But
So
maybe we'll talk about that. Okay, I can see that. But the Saints might be in the same boat. We'll see. All right, we will see you on Friday, Gabe, when we talk about my AFC and NFC West predictions and what you think of them. That will be our topic on Friday. We'll see you then.
Yep, kind of just gave you a Broncos spoiler, but
yeah,
it's okay.
Well, I think you and I pretty much feel the same about that team. All right, see you in a bit.
Sounds good.
Gabe Henderson, everybody. Some other comments to go back to. This, oddly enough, is a fairly young team, says Calvin. I'm having that issue where I'm clicking show. There it goes. I don't know why it does that. Especially, it's weird. Like, especially at towards the end of the show, it starts acting more weird. I don't know what's going on. Gabe, can you click hide on Calvin's comment and kind of go from? Let me see. If I have any trouble, I might have to have you take over. Can you click on Daryl Hayden's comment above him? In the early 80s, we called the Oklahoma drill the eye opener. That too. We called the eye opener. It wasn't fun as a 10th grader, no fun as a senior. It was a blast. You can go back to the other one too. And then he says, love the show. Who dat? You could just show some of the other comments as well as we go off here. I'm going to let you take those over. Calvin says, dark horse, Pete Werner. I don't know if Pete Werner counts because he's been a starter for a couple years now. So I don't know if that counts in that category, but maybe. I see what you're saying. What else we got, Gabe? Brian Cabot says best value on the under for Saints. Which under though? There's several unders. JC, hello from Denver, where it is 97 degrees today. I would definitely rather be in New Orleans because it's only going to be like in the 80s because it's supposed to be nasty outside. Patrice, bonjour from France. How you like that? I don't know. I better stop doing that. Charles Mangus, great show again, Jim and Gabe. Antron Broom has a comment up there. Rainy Cajun, you are 100% correct. Like, subscribe, and watch YouTube, people. You can't get enough of the likers and the lovers of this show. Antron, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Antron Broom Sr. says, all the Saints quarterbacks, the third-string quarterbacks, they don't even have a QB2, let alone a QB1. You know what, my friend? I can't disagree with you. That's why one of my questions, and I don't even know if I asked her. I did ask it. It was one of the first questions I asked Ross was, does it even matter? I mean, in the grand scheme, I guess it matters in the scheme of you need to know if Tyler Shough, I mean, we know Tyler Shough, at least it's a possibility he could be the quarterback of the future. I don't know how strong that possibility is because, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get into a lot. I just think that Spencer Rattler is not going to be. I think he has almost zero chance to be a long-term answer. Preacher Man says Saints will win the opener in the Dome 20-13. He's already predicting the Cardinals game. He said it. Who dat? Hey, I like the hope. I don't think I'm probably not going to be on your side in that one. I mean, I'll be on your side as far as I hope you're right. But I don't think I'm going to be on your side as far as what my prediction is going to be. Ron Hendrickson, Ross makes a good point about the Rat. In practice, he has been more aggressive than what he showed in the game. I think that's because Moore isn't showing anything he will use in the regular season. I think it's just because who he is. I think it's who Rattler is. I mean, we've seen flashes of what he potentially could. This is what bothers me about Spencer Rattler. And why I can't say there's a 0.0% chance that Spencer Rattler could ever be something, because I have seen flashes. He made a couple passes. I don't know if y'all remember. I don't even remember what game this was. There was a game. It was one of his earlier games where he made a pass on an out route in the front corner of the end zone. The Saints were going from right to left on the television screen. That's because where I sit in the press box. And I don't even remember who caught the ball. It was an out route, and it was a perfect pass. I mean, he got it in there on a rope. And I'm like, wow. There aren't a lot of other quarterbacks who could zip it in there like he zipped it in. There was a couple plays where he ran off. He kind of ran off and then threw the ball on the run. And I'm like, man, there are signs that this kid can do things that other players can't do. But then, you know, you talk about decisiveness. There's just things. He's decisive again when he's got it in his head, okay, I'm going to the first read, which is what he often does. But then There are other times when he has to look around and he just kind of looks like a deer in the headlights. You know, when he talked about he should have been able to get rid of the ball or run on the strip sack. Yeah, but that's something you have to feel. You have to feel that. I don't know. I mean, I don't disagree with Earl, and I'm trying to click it. I don't know if it showed or not, Gabe, but if it did, okay, click off of it when I'm done with it. It's too soon to know if Shough is going to be that bad. Maybe it is. I don't know. UBN says, I want to watch the games with Preacher Man and do some live bet with him. Come on, man. What about Brian Cavitt's comment there? Rat pro game might be a bit too big for him. Same for Hainer. Shough too early to know. I don't know that Rat's college game was any different, though, in the grand scheme. Was it different? I don't think it was different. You can take that off. Earl's picks, Rat had about 2 or 3 impressive throws out of all of them last year. It was more than 2 or 3. Again, he had some moments when I don't know. And again, the people who are fans of Spencer Rattler who say, think about who his offensive line was, you know, and think about not just his offensive line, think about, you know, who his receivers were. They have a point. You know, they have a point. I'm going to say this out loud. Gabe, when I am done reading the outro here, I want you to click on the outro screen for me because I'm having some issues. And that leads me to this. We're going to wrap it up for us on this Wednesday. We thank you all for being a part of this show. I want to thank today's guests, Ross Jackson, Gabe Henderson, and, of course, you. We hope you can join us next on Friday when we will welcome in, as we told you, Zach Ewing is going to be here. We're going to go through the rest of my picks of the AFC and NFC West with Gabe Henderson, by the way, again. You can catch all my shorts, all my picks if you haven't done them. I've already done 13 team previews. We did the AFC and NFC East last week. We're doing the AFC and NFC West this week. We had the Las Vegas Raiders this morning. This afternoon will be the San Francisco 49ers, Uncle Big Nick. I have not done it yet. I'm going to do it when I get off of the show. You can check out, again, all of our picks on our YouTube page and our TikTok page if you prefer TikTok. They're all 3 minutes or less. And then Gabe and I will go through them, and he will tell me where I'm right and where I'm wrong on Friday. Again, Zach Ewing, this will be the last Friday show without any predictions. Did you realize that? Next Friday, the 22nd, which is my dad's heavenly birthday, by the way, August 22nd, we'll be doing previews of week 0 games. That's right. We'll be talking about college football. We'll probably talk a lot more about LSU football next week, by the way, and Tulane football. Maybe that's how we'll spend next Wednesday. Maybe we'll talk about LSU and Tulane football. We'll have to find the right guest for that. We'll figure that out as we go along. A reminder, if you haven't already done so, as you see on the screen, to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. That's where the Dat Family lives. And you can click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live, which is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time. Brian Cavitt says, great show. Smash that like button. My daughter always, smash it. Don't smash it too hard. You might crack your screen or, I don't know, your keyboard or whatever it is. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. And also find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. You can find me, bet.NOLA.com. You can find our insiders at NOLA.com/Saints. You can find Gabe at sportsbookreview.com. One last thing before I say my last sentence here. I don't know about you, but I'm just about sick and damn tired of the Milwaukee Brewers. They need to jump in a hole and cover themselves with dirt. Sick of it. Stop winning, for Christ's sake. That's my rant of the day, and I saved it for the last. We will see everyone on Friday. Have a great hump day.